The first big car, really big car purchase I made, I moved in June of 18 to California. I had always been fairly financially conservative. I had never spent more than like 40 grand on a car, except for that 360 that I financed. That time I was not financially conservative, although to be fair, that did work. And I kind of developed a reputation of being a pretty cautious guy, which is where all these like Doug is the type of guy comments come from. Like I was like the cautious YouTuber. Everybody else was out doing dumb stuff like Hoovy. And I was like, I'm gonna get a used Mercedes station wagon. That was always my thing. And I was like the sensible guy who got the CarMax Range Rover warranty and all that. But I moved to California in June of 18 and it became clear to me almost immediately that I was gonna get swept up in this like exotic car. Like everybody had an exotic car. And I started dealing with O'Gara, which is like the McLaren Bugatti dealer. And they were all like hyping up all these exotic cars. And I would go to car shows where in Atlanta, like a Mercy is like a really, really special car. And people would be bringing F50s. And I'd be like, how am I not in this scene? So that summer, that year, I went to Pebble, to Monterey Car Week, and I saw a couple Ford GTs, and I was thinking, that's one that I think makes some sense for me because it's reliable, and values have never seesawed much. I mean, you have a pretty good idea of where it's going to end up, and it's like a drivable, usable car. The Ford GT had developed a bit of a reputation of being unreliable because of Jeremy Clarkson's ownership of his, but it was all BS. He had installed this aftermarket alarm that his insurer mandated because in Britain, insurers have like this enormous amount of power over the drivers, and he had to install it. And there was a problem with the car was never built to handle an immobilizer. And so it didn't ever work right. But generally, I always had heard from people that Ford GTs were reliable cars. And I had seen there were people who were doing like runway things. They were getting like 3,000 horsepower out of the block. And I was like, well, I think it can take a stock. Like I would never modify it. So I figured, if I'm going to do it, that's like a pretty reasonable thing. I started looking and I really wanted a white one with blue stripes, with a blue stripe or stripes. I don't even know. Is it plural? I don't remember. It's one stripe. And I was really looking for one and I couldn't find one. And then my buddy Carl, who was also a car journalist, Carl Brower, he worked for Kelley Blue Book, he'd worked for Cox Automotive, various different Edmunds. He had purchased one new and he was looking to get out of it right at that same time that I was looking to get into one because he had the new Ford GT coming. He had gotten on the list, he was gonna get a new one. Him and I made a deal. His car was blue with a white stripe. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was a one-owner car, and he had like an amazing amount of documentation. Because he had worked for Edmunds when he bought the car, they had let him like go to the factory while it was being built, and there's pictures. He has like the factory build book that like is signed off at every level of the factory. Like, yep, we put fenders on. Like they didn't give that to people, but he was able to get it. And so his car was like the perfect one, but the only drawback was it had been driven a lot. He had 30,000 miles on it because he bought it to like use and operate. And so he did. Even though it wasn't exactly the car I wanted, it was in great shape. It had 30,000 miles, which meant that it was a driver car, which I always look for. I always am trying to find a car that I can like use. So I bought it. I paid $225,000 for that car from him in September of 18. And it was a massive, massive purchase at the time. And even at that time, like not a lot of YouTubers had like kind of expensive cars like that, but it was becoming like a bigger trend by 18, people getting cool cars. But that was like the first purchase I made. And I remember having like sleepless nights, even at that time, about spending 225 grand on a car. I'd never bought a house. It was like the most expensive thing that I had ever done. But I really felt like it was going to be a reliable and easy to own vehicle, which it has been. I've driven that car now 12,000 miles in the 6 years that I've had it. It's probably been 6 years almost exactly today. And it's been fantastic. Since then, obviously, I've added a few more exotic cars to the fleet, which is, when we sold the business, I bought a Carrera GT and a Lamborghini Countach. And I now truly think that I have like the greatest not everybody has a 12-car garage to be able to park whatever they want, wherever they want. I got 3. And I think I bought the perfect 3-car fleet. The Ford GT is like the usable, daily drivable exotic car. The Carrera GT is like the ultimate precision, incredible car that I can take on very special drives. And the Countach is the one that people just absolutely, it's just like a totally different, exhilarating experience. And they really do fill like totally different buckets in my garage. And I don't think for the money that I've got in these cars, I could do better in any of those 3 buckets. Like, I think that the F40 drives a little better than the Carrera GT, but it's $5 million. That's not gonna happen. Like, I think there's probably cars that would freak people out more than a Countach, but they're crazy money, or it'd be like insane to own them. And the Ford GT, I really think is the most daily drivable, iconic car that exists. Those 3 kind of each fill those holes. And it's kind of interesting because I like now don't really think about getting other cars all that much. It never really crosses my mind. I have little kids. I'm doing a addition to my house, running cars and bids. It's a lot of work doing all these things. And I'm just like totally happy with these 3 cars. And I think they like perfectly fill their own niche. And you would never really compare them, but in their individual things, they're perfect. And I like could not be more satisfied with my 3-car supercar garage as it is. To this day, that Ford GT, I drive it everywhere. That's the car I take. If it's just me, I take my dog to daycare in it. I go to run errands in it. It's like no problem because it is like the reliable car of the 3. And it's been wonderful and fantastic. And it has that like that exact purpose and it fills that role in my life. I don't like to say forever because no car enthusiast will ever own a car forever, regardless of what he or she says. But certainly in this period of my life, I'm like too busy to like really. I would love a Diablo SE30. There's a few other cars I would love. I'm not doing it. I got a 4-car garage. I'm busy. I'm good for now. It's definitely going to be a while before anything changes in my garage. There also, what do I replace it with? Like what experience, what would be better than any of those experiences? That's the problem I'm having. I like pinnacled in each one of these areas and now it's like over. I'm like done. I got nothing else. I can't beat these 3 in my opinion anyway. The one exception to all of this is that when I was looking for the Carrera GT, before I bought the Carrera GT, I wanted an F40. There's a lot of reasons I wanted an F40, but the biggest, I mean, it's like the icon. It's like the car, you know, like in the history of, and that is one thing my garage is missing. I don't have a Ferrari. In the history of the supercar, the F40 will go down as one of the greats, which I think Countach will too and should, and Carrera GT. But the F40 is one of the greats and probably Ferrari's most special and most iconic. I went looking for an F40 when we were about to take our investment in Cars and Bids. I went looking with Matt Ivanhoe, who has been on this very program. The Cultivated Collector is his dealership and his Instagram. He was incredible and was wonderful and was looking everywhere to source me a car, but it just wasn't realistic at the number I gave him, which was $1.7 million. That's an enormous amount of money. And even then I had some misgivings about buying a car that was that valuable because I wasn't sure that realistically I would want to drive around in a car like that. And I'm a driver, like I use all my cars all the time. I've put 3,500 miles on the Carrera GT. Like I got no problem driving these cars. So I was like nervous to get into that car in the first place. And in the end, he like tried so hard to find me a car. We were only looking at Euro high mileage F40s that had been hit. Like that was it. And even then they wanted 2 million. And I think I just missed that boat. In retrospect, I am glad that it worked out this way because I think that the Carrera GT and Countach 2-car solution is a better 2-car than the F40 was as a 1-car. The Carrera GT drives better. I mean, period. It's a more modern, better driving, better put together car. It's a much more engaging car to drive. The Countach, honestly, is more insane. Like when you drive that thing around, when people see an F40, it's cool. When people see a Countach, I've never seen anything like it. And when I'm in it, the V12, the carbed V12 is so crazy. And the sound of it and the feel of it. And also you're in one of the great supercar designs, this Gandini wedge, the first wedge car, the first scissor door car. It's even more insane. And so like I have a better driver and a more insane car. And I kind of have come to terms with it. I think having one F40 isn't as good as having those 2. And a lot of people are like, people don't really have to make choices like that, like in hypotheticals. Well, I did. And this is what I chose, and I'm cool with it. And now I think the F40 is gone for good. I don't think it's realistic. And at this point, I don't really want to sell the stuff I have. So even though a Carrera GT and a Countach probably could dollar-wise equal one F40, I'm all set. I'm not pursuing it anymore. It was cool, but at 2.5, 3, it starts to just become not realistic.
This month, the VINwiki Car Stories is brought to you by Extreme Experience. They give you the chance to get behind the wheel of the greatest supercars on earth at the most amazing racetracks in America. I know you'll love it. I just got the chance to drive their brand new Ferrari 296. I hadn't had the chance to drive the car. They had it in town. It was the perfect way for me to experience a great new car. But whatever your dream car is, you can drive it with Extreme Experience. It's also the perfect holiday gift for the car lover in your life. So check them out now at the link in the description below. Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, Porsche, all of it. So check them out now at the link in the description below to book your next drive with Extreme Experience.